Jake Harrison woke up with a sharp pain in his skull and the taste of metal in his mouth. The last thing he remembered was his ship exploding around him in a bright flash of orange fire. Now he lay on a cold surface that felt wrong under his hands. Too smooth. Too perfect. He opened his eyes slowly. The ceiling above him glowed with a strange blue light that hurt to look at directly. Everything was white and clean in a way that made his skin crawl. This was not a human ship. Jake pushed himself up to sitting. His body ached all over, but nothing felt broken. They had kept him alive. That was either very good news or very bad news. In his experience, enemies who wanted you alive usually had plans that were worse than death. The room was small with walls that seemed to hum with energy. There was no door that he could see, no windows, no way out. Just 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor that all looked exactly the same. Jake had been in plenty of prison cells before, but this was different. This felt like being inside a machine. He stood up and walked to one of the walls. When he got close, symbols appeared on the surface. They looked like scratches made by claws, but they glowed and moved like living things. He reached out to touch one but pulled his hand back when it felt like ice against his skin. Jake was a scout pilot for the Colonial Defense Force. He had been mapping the outer rim of human space when something had grabbed his ship right out of hyperspace. The last sensor reading showed a vessel 10 times the size of anything humans had ever built. Then his ship had come apart like paper in a storm. He was alive. His ship was gone. That meant whoever had him wanted information. Jake had been trained for this. Rule 1 was simple. Tell them nothing. Rule 2 was even simpler. Stay alive as long as possible. His people would come looking for him eventually. A section of the wall suddenly became transparent. Jake stepped back as 3 figures walked through what had looked like solid metal just seconds before. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. Their faces were sharp and cold with eyes that glowed the same blue as the ceiling. The one in the middle spoke in perfect English. Human designation Jake Harrison, serial number 7794 Alpha, scout pilot, Colonial Defense Force, age 34, born Detroit, Earth. Jake said nothing. They already knew more about him than they should. I am High Inquisitor Vexathera of the Zephyrian Empire. You are aboard our interrogation vessel Void Seeker. You will answer our questions about human, military capabilities, colony locations, and defensive strategies. Cooperation will result in a quick death. Resistance will result in pain beyond anything your primitive nervous system can imagine. Jake looked at each of them in turn. They stood like soldiers, but there was something else in their posture. Confidence, boredom even. They had done this many times before. How many times have you given that speech? Jake asked. Vexathera's glowing eyes narrowed. This is not a conversation, human. You will speak only when asked direct questions. Right. Got it. No talking unless you say so. Very original. Jake sat down on the floor and leaned against the wall. So what now? You going to threaten me some more, or are we getting to the actual interrogation part? The alien in the middle stepped forward. Jake could see his reflection in her crystal skin, distorted and broken into pieces. You do not understand your situation, she said. I have broken prisoners from 47 different species, creatures far stronger than humans, warriors who could tear you apart with their bare hands, beings with mental powers that could crush your mind like an insect. All of them begged for death before I was finished. Jake nodded like he was listening to a weather report. Sounds like you keep busy. Must be good job security in the torture business. Something flickered across Vexathera's face. Surprise, maybe. She was not used to prisoners who made jokes. Your species is new to us, she continued. Our scouts report that humans come from a single world. You have no significant military technology. Your ships are primitive. Your weapons are crude. You are nothing compared to the Zephyrian Empire. If we're so pathetic, why do you need to interrogate me? Jake asked. Seems like you could just roll over us without breaking a sweat. Intelligence is always valuable, even about insects. Vexathera turned to the other 2 aliens. Prepare the neural interface. We begin immediately. They grabbed Jake by the arms and lifted him like he weighed nothing. Their grip felt like being held by machines. They carried him through the wall, which dissolved as they approached and reformed behind them. The corridor outside was the same white as his cell, but much longer. Doors appeared and disappeared as they walked past. Other aliens moved through. The halls, all of them tall and crystalline like his captors. None of them looked at Jake. He was not worth their attention. They brought him to a room with a single chair in the center. Around the chair, metal devices hung from the ceiling like the arms of some mechanical spider. They looked sharp and hungry. The neural probes will connect directly to your nervous system, Vexthera explained as they strapped Jake into the chair. They will stimulate every pain receptor in your body simultaneously. The sensation has been described as being burned, alive from the inside while your bones are crushed to powder. Jake tested the straps holding him down. They were solid but not impossible. He filed that information away for later. Most subjects lose consciousness within minutes, Vexthera continued. When they wake up, they are eager to tell us everything they know. The process can be repeated indefinitely without causing permanent damage. We have kept some prisoners alive for years this way. One of the metal arms descended toward Jake's head. At the tip was a needle that glowed with the same blue light as everything else on the ship. Last chance, human, Vexthera said. Tell us what we want to know, and this ends quickly. Jake looked directly at her crystal face. His voice was calm and steady. You people have no idea what you just got yourselves into. The needle touched his skull and Jake Harrison screamed. The needle pierced Jake's skull and fire exploded through his brain. Every nerve in his body felt like it was being ripped apart and put back together. The pain was worse than anything he had ever felt. Worse than the time he broke 3 ribs in a shuttle crash. Worse than when shrapnel tore through his leg on Europa. This was pain that had no name. Jake bit down hard and tasted blood. His hands gripped the arms of the chair so tight his knuckles went white. But he did not scream again. He would not give them that satisfaction. Vexthera watched from across the room. Her crystal face showed no emotion, but Jake could see confusion in her glowing eyes. Most prisoners were babbling secrets by now, begging for mercy. This human just sat there and took it. Increase power to level 5, she ordered. The pain doubled, then doubled again. Jake felt like his blood was made of acid and his bones were being crushed by hammers. His vision went red around the edges. Sweat poured down his face, but he kept his mouth shut. He had learned a long time ago that pain was temporary. Giving up lasted forever. Level 7, Vexthera said. Her voice sounded less certain now. Jake's back arched against the chair. His muscles locked up and trembled. The world turned into nothing but white-hot agony. But somewhere deep in his mind, in a place the machines could not reach, he held on to a single thought. His grandmother's apple pie, the smell of cinnamon and the sound of her humming in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. 20 minutes passed, then 30. The other Zephyrians in the room began to look at each other. This was not normal. No creature should be able to withstand Level 7 for more than a few minutes. Level 9, Vexthera commanded. Her voice cracked slightly. Level 9 was supposed to break the minds of enemy generals, war leaders who had commanded armies and survived battles that destroyed planets. Jake felt something inside his skull pop and warm liquid ran down his neck. Blood, probably. But he was still thinking, still fighting. Vexthera turned off the machine. Jake slumped in the chair, breathing hard. His whole body shook, but his eyes were still clear, still angry. Impossible, she whispered. Jake raised his head and looked at her. Is that supposed to hurt? He asked. His voice was rough but steady. Lady, I grew up in Detroit. I have felt worse pain waiting for the bus in winter. The High Inquisitor stepped closer. What are you? I am human, Jake said simply. And you just made your first mistake. Vexthera activated the psychological torture system. Images filled the air around Jake. Human cities burning. Children crying as monsters tore their families apart. Earth itself cracking open like an egg under the guns of the Zephyrian fleet. These visions had broken the will of entire civilizations. Jake watched it all with calm eyes. When the images stopped, he shook his head. "You really do not understand us at all," he said. "You think showing me death and destruction will break me? Friend, my species invented war. We have been killing each other for thousands of years over everything from religion to the color of our skin. We know exactly how ugly things can get." "Then why do you resist?" Vexathera demanded. "If you know you cannot win, why do you fight?" Jake smiled for the first time since waking up on their ship. "Because that is what humans do. We fight. We never give up. We never surrender. Even when we are scared. Even when we are dying. Even when there is no hope left at all." The High Inquisitor tried to read his mind with her telepathic abilities. She had used these powers to tear secrets from the brains of enemy spies and generals. But when she touched Jake's thoughts, she found something she had never encountered before. His mind was chaos. Not the broken chaos of madness, but organized chaos. Like a storm that moved in patterns. His thoughts jumped from childhood memories to tactical assessments to song lyrics to escape plans. He was thinking about 17 different things at once while still focusing completely on the moment, and underneath it all was something that made her pull back in shock. He was not afraid of her. He pitied her. "Your problem," Jake said, as if he could read her thoughts instead of the other way around, "is that you think strength means making others suffer. Real strength is about not letting others make you suffer. My dad taught me that before he died in a mining accident when I was 12. Vexathera tried again to break into his mind. This time she found memories of Jake's father, a big man with gentle hands who worked in dangerous tunnels to feed his family. She saw him teaching young Jake how to fix engines and throw a baseball and stand up to bullies. "Pain does not last forever, Jake," his father said in the memory. "But giving up does. Remember that." The High Inquisitor jerked back from the connection. She had been trying to torture this human with his own memories, but they were making him stronger instead of weaker. "How is this possible?" she asked. Jake looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. "Because we learn from pain instead of just running away from it. Every time life kicks us down, we get back up and figure out how to do better next time. That is why we made it off our planet. That is why we built ships and came out here to the stars. Not because things were easy, but because they were hard." Vexathera called for senior tormentor Krelnox. If the neural torture would not work, they would try something else, something worse. But as she watched Jake Harrison sitting calmly in that chair, still unbroken after hours of agony, she felt something she had not experienced in 200 years of service to the Empire. Fear. Not fear of this one human. Fear of what he represented. If humans could endure this much pain and still think clearly, still plan, still hope, then everything the Zephyrians believed about strength and weakness might be wrong. Jake saw the fear in her eyes and his smile got wider. "You are starting to understand," he said. "This was your first mistake, but it will not be your last." Senior tormentor Krelnox arrived 6 hours later. He was bigger than the other Zephyrians with darker crystal skin that looked like black glass. Scars covered his arms where he had tested torture devices on himself to understand how they worked. He had broken more minds than any other interrogator in the Empire. "This is the human?" he asked, looking at Jake with interest. "He does not look special." "He has withstood neural torture for 6 hours, Vexathera said. "Level 9 intensity. No other creature has lasted more than 20 minutes. Krelnox walked around Jake's chair like a predator studying its prey. "Interesting. Perhaps their nervous system is different. We will find out." He activated a new machine. "This is the memory shredder. It will force you to relive your worst experiences over and over, but each time the pain and fear will be stronger. Eventually your mind will break from the pressure." The machine attached itself to Jake's skull with metal claws. Suddenly he was back on Europa, watching his squad die in an ambush. He felt the same helplessness, the same rage, the same guilt, but this time it was 10 times worse. The screams were louder, the blood was brighter, the smell of death was stronger. Then it started over, and over, and over. Most prisoners became insane within an hour. Their minds could not handle reliving. trauma with such intensity. But Jake did something that shocked both interrogators. He started talking through the memories. "Yeah, that was Martinez getting hit by the plasma blast," he said, tears running down his face. "Good soldier. Had 3 kids back home. And there is Rodriguez trying to drag him to cover, always looking out for his team." His voice shook, but stayed steady. "We lost 8 people that day, but we saved 200 colonists. Worth it." Krell increased the power. Now Jake was reliving his father's death, watching the mine collapse, hearing the alarms, feeling the ground shake as tons of rock came down. But instead of breaking, Jake began to smile through the tears. "Dad always said the mine was dangerous," he whispered. "But he went down there every day anyway. You know why? Because people needed the minerals to build homes and schools and hospitals. He died doing something that mattered. That is how I want to go too." The senior tormentor tried a different memory. Jake's first kill in combat. The moment when he had to take a life to save his own. This was supposed to destroy him with guilt and self-hatred. Jake watched himself pull the trigger and nodded. Had to be done. That raider was about to shoot a bunch of kids. I made the choice and I live with it. That is what being a soldier means. Sometimes you have to do terrible things so other people do not have to. Vexithara stared at the readings on her instruments. The human's brain activity was off the charts, but not in the way they expected. Instead of falling apart, his mind was becoming more organized, more focused. He was using the torture to think through his past and make sense of it. "How is this possible?" she asked. Krell switched to the existential void. This was his most powerful weapon. It showed prisoners the true size of the universe. How small and meaningless they were. How nothing they did mattered in the face of infinite space and time. It revealed the pointlessness of existence and crushed the will to live. Images filled Jake's mind. Galaxies spinning in the darkness. Billions of stars being born and dying. The vast emptiness between worlds. His entire species was just a tiny speck that would be forgotten in a few thousand years. Nothing he did would matter. Nothing anyone did would matter. Jake looked at it all and laughed. "You think that scares me?" he said. "We figured that out a long time ago. Hell, we have a whole branch of philosophy about it. But here's the thing you do not understand. The fact that life is short and the universe is big does not make it meaningless. It makes it more precious." He turned to look directly at Krell. "If this is all we get, then every moment counts. Every friendship, every act of kindness. Every time we help someone or make them smile or keep them safe. That is what gives life meaning. Not some cosmic purpose handed down from above. The meaning we make ourselves." The senior tormentor stepped back. In 300 years of breaking minds, he had never heard anything like this. "You are insane," he said. "No," Jake replied. "I am human. And you are making your second mistake." Vexithara checked the time. Jake had been under torture for 12 hours. No prisoner in the history of the Empire had lasted this long. But more than that, he was affecting her crew. She had seen some of her guards talking quietly among themselves, asking questions about their own beliefs, about whether what they were doing was right. During a break between sessions, Jake had started asking the guards about their families, where they came from, what they wanted to do with their lives. Simple questions asked with genuine interest, and some of them had answered. Guard Captain Zixandra reported that the humans seemed to care more about their personal stories than his own situation. He asked about their children and their hopes for the future. He listened when they talked, about missing home or feeling tired of constant war. He is gathering intelligence, Vexthera realized with horror. While we torture him, he is learning about us. Krell tried one final technique, the moral collapse. He showed Jake images of human history. Every war, every genocide, every act of cruelty that his species had ever committed. The slave trade, the concentration camps, the nuclear bombs, the environmental destruction. All of humanity's shame laid bare. "Look at your species," he said. "Look at what you really are. Killers, destroyers. You pretend to be noble, but you are no better than animals. How can you defend such monsters? Jake watched it all, every terrible moment, every failure, every time humans had chosen hate over love, fear over courage, greed over compassion. When it was over, he nodded sadly. You are right, he said. We have done horrible things. We have hurt each other and destroyed our own world and made mistakes. That cost millions of lives. We are not perfect, we never claimed to be. Krelnox smiled, thinking he had finally won. But here is what you miss, Jake continued. We remember. We teach our children about our failures so they can do better. We try to learn from our mistakes instead of just repeating them. That is what makes us human. Not that we never fall down, but that we always try to get back up. The smile disappeared from the senior tormentor's face. Every species you have conquered probably told you they were perfect, Jake said. That they deserved to rule because they were better than everyone else. Well, I am telling you the truth. We are flawed. We are broken. We make terrible choices sometimes, but we keep trying to be better than we were yesterday. And that is enough. In that moment, both interrogators realized they had made a terrible error. They were not breaking this human, he was breaking them. By the fourth day, the Zephyrian interrogation team was falling apart. Jake had been under torture for 72 hours and showed no signs of breaking. Worse than that, he was changing the people around him. 3 guards had requested transfers, off the ship. They claimed the human made them uncomfortable, but Vexithara knew the real reason. Jake was making them think about things they had never questioned before, about right and wrong, about whether their empire was truly as great as they had been taught. Guard Captain Zixandra came to report another problem. The human is telling stories during his sessions, she said. Stories about his people's history. Some of the crew have been listening. What kind of stories? Vexithara asked. Strange ones. About individuals who stood up against powerful enemies. About people who chose to do what was right even when it cost them everything. He talks about them like they were heroes. This worried the High Inquisitor, more than Jake's resistance to torture. The Zephyrian Empire was built on the idea that might made right, that the strong naturally ruled the weak. But Jake's stories presented a different way of thinking, one where moral courage mattered more than physical power. She went to observe the next session. Jake was strapped in the chair while Krelnox applied electrical torture to his nervous system. But instead of screaming, the human was talking. There was this woman named Rosa Parks, he said, his voice strained but clear. Small lady, worked as a seamstress. One day she got on a bus and sat down in the front. When they told her to move to the back, she said no. Just like that. No. The electrical current increased, but Jake kept talking. They arrested her. Put her in jail. But that one word, that one moment of saying no, changed everything. Started a movement that freed millions of people. All because one tired woman decided she was not going to be pushed around anymore. Vexithara saw some of her guards exchanging glances. They were thinking about times they had wanted to say no, but were afraid. Jake continued with another story. Then there was this group of firefighters. September 11th, 2001. 2 giant buildings were on fire in New York City. Thousands of people trapped inside. Everyone else was running away from the buildings. But these firefighters ran toward them. They knew they might die. They went anyway because people needed help. Krelnox turned up the power until Jake's muscles spasmed. But the human kept talking through gritted teeth. Most of them did die. Over 300 firefighters lost their lives that day, but they saved thousands of others. They ran into burning buildings because that was their job, because someone had to do it, because it was right. The senior tormentor stopped the machine and stepped back. Why do you tell these stories? They mean nothing. These people are dead. Their sacrifices were pointless. Jake looked at him with something that might have been pity. You really do not understand, do you? They are not dead. Every time someone chooses to do the right thing instead of the easy thing, those people live. Again, every time someone stands up to a bully or helps a stranger or refuses to give up, they honor that sacrifice. Over the following hours, Jake told more stories. About Harriet Tubman leading slaves to freedom. about soldiers who jumped on grenades to save their friends, about doctors who stayed with patients during plagues, about teachers who went to work in dangerous neighborhoods because kids needed education. Each story was about ordinary people who became extraordinary through their choices. People who faced impossible odds and found the strength to do what was right anyway. The stories began to spread through the ship. Guards told them to other guards. Engineers shared them during their shifts. Even some of the officers found themselves thinking about these humans who had chosen courage over safety. Vexithera realized what was happening. The prisoner was not just resisting interrogation, he was waging a war of ideas. Every story chipped away at the foundations of Zephyrian society. Every example of moral courage made their system of domination look hollow and weak. She decided to try one final technique. The mind merge. It was dangerous and could kill both her and the prisoner, but it would let her tear his memories directly from his consciousness. She would finally break him or die trying. "Prepare the psychic amplifiers," she ordered. Krell Knox looked concerned. "High Inquisitor, the mind merge has never been used on an unknown species. We do not know what it might do to either of you." "This human has made fools of us all," she said. "I will not let that continue." They connected the devices to both Jake and Vexithera. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, diving deep into his consciousness. She expected to find fear, pain, desperation, things she could use against him. Instead, she found something that shocked her to the core. Jake was not afraid of her. He was not even angry. He was sorry for her. In his mind, she saw how he viewed the Zephyrians, not as evil monsters but as a people who had lost their way, who had become so focused on conquest that they had forgotten what it meant to create, to love, to hope for something better. She saw his memories of Earth, not the wars and violence that Krell Knox had shown him, but the beauty. Children playing in parks, families having dinner together, artists creating music and paintings and stories, scientists working to cure diseases, people helping each other through disasters and celebrating each other's successes. "This is what you could have," Jake's thoughts whispered to her. "This is what you gave up when you chose to be conquerors instead of builders." Vexithera tried to push deeper, to find some weakness she could exploit. But everywhere she looked, she found the same thing. Compassion. Not just for his own people, but for hers. Jake Harrison genuinely wanted the Zephyrians to be better than they were. "Why?" she asked through the mental link. "Why do you care what happens to us? We are your enemies." "Because everyone deserves a chance to choose who they want to be," Jake replied. "Even you." The psychic backlash hit her like a physical blow. She was thrown back from the connection, her crystal skin cracking from the strain. But the damage was not physical. It was something much worse. For the first time in 200 years, High Inquisitor Vexithera questioned everything she believed. The rightness of the Empire, the necessity of conquest, the meaning of strength. As she lay on the floor gasping for breath, she realized the terrible truth. They had not been interrogating Jake Harrison. He had been interrogating them. News of the failed interrogation spread through the Zephyrian fleet like a virus. Supreme Admiral Korthak received the report while reviewing invasion plans for human space. He had conquered over 1,000 worlds in his 300-year career. Never once had a single prisoner caused such chaos. "Bring the human to me," he ordered. Jake was dragged in chains to the flagship's command center. The room was massive, filled with holographic displays showing the positions of 500 warships. Each vessel carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. The combined fleet could wipe out human civilization in a matter of days. Supreme. Admiral Korthak stood 12 feet tall, his crystal skin black as space itself. Battle scars covered his arms and chest. This was a being who had personally led the charge in hundreds of battles, who had never known defeat. "So you are the human who thinks he can break the Zephyrian Empire," the Admiral said. Jake looked around the command center. Officers stood at their stations, all watching him. He could see the uncertainty in their glowing eyes. Word of his resistance had reached even here. "I am not trying to break anything," Jake said simply. I am just being myself. Korthak activated. The holographic displays. Images of the human fleet appeared around them. Small ships with primitive weapons. Colonies protected by outdated defense systems. Earth itself, blue and defenseless in the darkness. Look upon your species' pathetic forces, the Admiral said. We have mapped every human settlement, catalogued every ship. Your people have no idea we exist. When we attack, it will be over in hours. Billions will die. Jake studied the displays. Carefully. He was memorizing fleet positions, ship types, weapon capabilities. Even now, even here, he was gathering intelligence. Why are you showing me this? He asked. Because I want you to understand how pointless your resistance has been. Your torture changed nothing. A few weak-minded guards requested transfers. Some officers asked foolish questions. But the invasion will proceed as planned. Jake nodded slowly. You really think this is about stopping your invasion? What else could it be about? You still do not get it, Jake said with something that might have been sadness. This was never about military strategy. This was about showing you who you really are. Korthak stepped closer, his massive form towering over the human. And what are we? Afraid. The word hit the command center like a physical blow. Several officers turned to stare. No one had ever called the Supreme Admiral afraid. Explain yourself, human, before I have you killed. Jake looked up at the towering alien without flinching. You have the most powerful fleet in this part of the galaxy. You could probably defeat us without breaking a sweat. So why do you need to torture prisoners for information? Why do you need to prove your superiority? If you were truly confident in your strength, you would not need to convince anyone of it. We gather intelligence to minimize casualties among our forces. No, Jake said. You torture prisoners because you enjoy it, because making others suffer makes you feel powerful. And deep down, you know that makes you weak. Korthak raised his hand to strike, but something in Jake's eyes stopped him. There was no fear there, no hatred, just a calm certainty that was more unsettling than any weapon. You want to know what real strength looks like? Jake continued. Real strength is my grandmother working 3 jobs to raise 5 kids after my grandfather died. Real strength is doctors going to work during a plague because people need help. Real strength is saying sorry when you are wrong and trying to do better. Your species is primitive, Korthak said, but his voice lacked conviction. Yeah, we are. We just figured out how to travel between stars. Our ships are slow and our weapons are basic. But we have something you lost a long time ago. What? Hope. Jake turned to address the entire command center. You people have been conquering for so long you forgot why you started. What was the point? What were you trying to achieve? Did you want to make the galaxy a better place? Did you want to protect your families, or did you just want everyone to be afraid of you? Murmurs spread through the bridge. Some officers were nodding. Others looked confused. A few appeared angry, but even their anger seemed uncertain. Your empire is dying, Jake said. Not from external enemies, but from internal rot. You have become so focused on domination that you stopped growing, stopped learning, stopped dreaming of anything better. Supreme Admiral Korthak felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Doubt. This human was asking questions he had never considered. Questions that had no easy answers. What would you have us do? He asked quietly. Choose, Jake said. You can keep being conquerors, spreading fear and pain across the galaxy until someone stronger comes along and does to you what you did to others. Or you can try something different. You can try being builders instead of destroyers. And if we choose to continue the invasion, Jake smiled sadly, then you will win the battle and lose the war. Because my people will remember what happened here. They will know that somewhere in space there are beings who torture prisoners and destroy worlds for fun. And they will make sure everyone else knows too. You threaten us? I am telling you the truth. Humans have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. You attack us, and every decent species in this galaxy will know what you are. Eventually they will unite against you, and you will fall. Admiral Korthak stared at this small human who had somehow turned an interrogation into a trial, who had made an entire empire question itself with nothing but words and moral courage. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. A technician called out, "Supreme Admiral, human ships detected at the edge of the system. They are broadcasting a message." The main screen flickered to life. A woman in a Colonial Defense Force uniform appeared. "This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the human fleet. We know you have our pilot. Return him safely and there will be no further conflict. Harm him, and we will make you regret it." Jake looked at the screen and grinned. "Like I said, we always come for our people." Korthak realized he faced a choice. He could order the attack and begin a war that might never end, or he could do something unprecedented in Zephyrian history. He could walk away. "Release the prisoner," he said quietly. As Jake was led to the transport bay, he turned back to the Supreme Admiral. "This does not have to be the end," he said. "It could be a beginning. Your people and mine, we could learn from each other, build something better together." "Perhaps," Korthak replied. "Perhaps." The human shuttle docked and Jake walked aboard, free after 5 days of interrogation that had shaken an empire to its core. As the human ships departed, the Zephyrian fleet held position. The invasion was quietly cancelled. In the years that followed, small groups of Zephyrians began to question their society's values. Some left the military to become artists, scientists, and teachers. Others worked to reform the empire from within. The revolution Jake Harrison started with his stories and his compassion would take decades to fully unfold. But it had begun. The interrogation had lasted 5 days. The change it brought would last 5 centuries.